Good evening, I'm Chris Nachkate. Welcome to APTN National News and thank you for joining us. With the federal election just around the corner, we take a look at the newly formed riding of Sault Ste. Marie-Algoma. APTN's Mike McDonald spoke with two of the candidates looking to represent a riding where the ongoing trade dispute with the U.S. is especially felt.
Sault Ste. Marie sits on the Canada-U.S. border and is heavily reliant on the steel industry. The federal riding of Sault Ste. Marie-Algoma is also home to a number of First Nations communities. Liberal Terry Sheehan has represented the former riding of Sault Ste. Marie since 2015 and has long had a connection with the local First Nations community.
My wife and kids are members of Batchewana First Nation, so it's a very personal thing for me as well. So I plan on serving the First Nation communities, the Indigenous communities, the urban Indigenous residents that are here in some of the communities that are attached to First Nations around Canada.
Laura Mayer carries the NDP banner into this election. Mayer is from Mississauga First Nation, where she currently serves as a band councillor.
I know the issues very well. I was the senior political advisor for the Anishinaabeg Nation. I worked within Mississauga First Nation for quite a long time. And from anywhere from healthcare to housing to economic development to justice, I have a really deep understanding of what the issues are for First Nations communities.
Sheehan says one of the issues he'll focus on if re-elected will be economic development.
Economic and business development, I see opportunity everywhere, especially in the Indigenous communities. There are so many great ideas, great businesses. I work very well with a number of Indigenous businesses, helping them grow. I used to work in helping them start, but also skill development too.
Mayer says there are a pair of issues that she's heard about from Indigenous and non-Indigenous voters while on the campaign trail.
There's two things I think that unify all of the people that I've spoken to. One is tariffs and economic instability, wondering about ensuring that our economy is protected, that our jobs are protected. And the other thing that's unifying is healthcare, people are, very focused on trying to get primary health care. They might not have a family doctor.
Sault Ste. Marie-Algoma is one of the swing ridings recently identified by the Assembly of First Nations. Former Sault Ste. Marie Police Chief Hugh Stevenson is running for the Conservatives. He did not respond to our request for an interview. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
Today, federal Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre is promising to give police the power to dismantle encampments and arrest those living in them if his party is elected. At a campaign stop in Hamilton on Wednesday, Poilievre said a Conservative government would amend the criminal code to give police the power to remove and criminally charge people living in encampments. He also said his government would make changes allowing judges to mandate drug addiction treatment as part of prison sentences and will fund 50,000 addiction treatment spaces. The Conservative Party of Canada also released their official platform yesterday, just days away from the federal election on Monday. It says a Conservative government would return to a housing-first approach to eliminating homelessness, ensuring people get off the streets into a stable place to live. The family of a First Nation man who went missing in Edmonton 2 weeks ago is hoping the public can help find him and bring him home. 66-year-old Brian Wesley Potts was last seen leaving the Royal Alexander Hospital in Edmonton on April 10th after a visit with his son. He was wearing a brown camouflage hat, a dark blue Edmonton Oilers hoodie, light brown pants, and brown shoes. On April 15th, Edmonton police says Potts was seen getting off a transit bus and walking towards the Westmount Shopping Centre. Potts, who is from the Alexis Nakota Sioux Nation just west of Edmonton, lives with dementia and is diabetic and in need of his medication. Police say Potts is also known to frequent the Stony Plain Road area in West Edmonton. Candice Alexis is the missing man's niece.
The Lord is keeping him safe, and I really believe with my whole heart that God can keep anybody from death and from sick and from being, because I know he needs medication for his illnesses and his sicknesses, but I believe and trust in God that God is keeping him right now and can keep him alive and safe and protected.
In September of 2020, Chelsea Poorman went missing in Vancouver. 2 years later, her body was found outside a vacant mansion in an affluent neighborhood. Her family recently held a memorial walk in honor of Chelsea and 2 other Indigenous women found around the same time. APTN's Tina House joins us now with more.
We're here in Vancouver's Shaughnessy neighborhood, where it was 3 years ago that the body of Chelsea Poorman was found. Joining me today is her sister Diamond. Diamond, nice to see you today.
Thank you.
Tell me, what is this big crowd here doing?
So today we're honoring the 3rd year anniversary that my sister has been found at the Shaughnessy mansion in the back, actually. So it's very important that I bring awareness for her and the other families too, because they were found around weeks within each other. So yeah.
It's amazing to see the community's support here coming out to help you and your family get the message across. What have the police said about her mysterious death?
Really, they just kind of shut it down the best they could and just said it was non-suspicious, non-foul play, but everything about it speaks the complete opposite, really.
And what would you like the police to do further?
To acknowledge all of it and to bring the answers that we deserve, and also for accountability towards the neglect and the scrutiny that they've caused. And yeah.
We're also honoring a couple of other women as well, Tatiana Harrison as well as Noello Soup. What do you want to say about those families, what they've been going through?
Well, I just want to be here to fight for them as well, because they are really struggling and healing and trying their hardest to grieve, and it's been extremely hard for them. So I just want to be the one that's strong enough to speak on their behalf for them and bring awareness for them as well, because they all matter just as much, right?
Indigenous women or family
Absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit about your sister Chelsea?
And you have.
Chelsea was an amazing human being with such a personality and humor, and just always positive. She's been through so many dark experiences, a lot of painful things that have happened to her, and she's always been able to stay strong and be happy no matter what and stay positive. So I really appreciate that about her.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, and our sincere condolences to you and your family, and we really do hope you get the answers that you're looking for. Thanks, Diamond. Nice to see you. Back to you in studio.
Thank you, Tina. Canada's former Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland recently visited La Ronge, Saskatchewan last week. She stopped by a program that supports men in making positive choices and building stronger communities. Freeland visited La Ronge to support Liberal candidate Buckley Belanger for Desnethi-Missinippi-Churchill River. While there, she visited Men of the North, learned about its support services, and called the initiative very impressive. Founded in 2020, Men of the North is a program that teaches men key life skills like building real connections, taking accountability, and exploring masculinity. Participants gain access to mental health workshops, traditional and land-based practices, and work experience. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, you can go to aptnnews.ca, and you can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Members of the LELD First Nation in Southern Yukon is calling for stronger leadership and transparency. That story when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Members of the LELD First Nation in Southern Yukon are raising serious questions about leadership and transparency in their community. Band members there are accusing the First Nations chief of dismantling the band's language department under troubling circumstances. And its deputy chief is also raising concerns about the First Nations finances. Now, many people there are calling for change. Here's APTN's Sarah Connors with that story.
For these former LELD First Nation language workers, language is life and the very essence of who they are as Casca people. The department, located in Upper Liard near the community of Watson Lake, made big strides when it came to language preservation. That included working with elders to build fluency, developing a Kaska language app, and creating a multitude of language resources.
That was like one of the beautiful things that we had, is just to like uphold people that are learning their language. All that's just been taken away from us.
But now, these former employees say Liard's language department building is sitting empty. According to them, all of the department's employees were either fired, laid off, or forced to resign, and they feel Chief Stephen Charlie is to blame.
It's very emotional because like the amount of work that we did for our language and for just advocating for language to be everywhere.
Last fall, the language department's director received a letter from Chief and Council stating her position would be dissolved. The department's employees spoke out against that decision, arguing the director's leadership was invaluable and that her dismissal would pose a serious threat to their language work. At the same time, 5 other council members released a letter accusing Chief Charlie of unilateral decision-making, including decisions about the dismissal and termination of staff without their consent.
They're just allegations. I don't have no reason to defend myself. I've done nothing wrong.
Charlie said in an interview with APTN News last fall that the allegations against him were baseless. The issue came to a head in December 2024 when employees Emerald Pope and Diana Lee Jimmy were fired for speaking out to the media about their concerns with Charlie's leadership.
There have been a lot of struggles with our current leadership.
It's just like really heartbreaking to feel that this is how we're being treated.
Caesar says he was the last employee to leave the department in mid-January. He alleges the First Nations HR department blocked his email, changed the locks on the language building, and took away his accrued sick leave and vacation time.
Just feeling like isolated from chief and council and being like the only person left, I did not have any choice but to resign.
We could be focusing all our time and energy on becoming fluent, and instead we're being distracted by these politics.
The issue surrounding the language department isn't sitting right with this elder.
It's heartbreaking because our language is the most important thing to being a First Nation individual.
She feels leadership isn't taking the issue seriously.
I hope there's changes in leadership, because with this present leadership, we're not going anywhere.
The former workers also claimed the department received nearly $600,000 in funding for the 2024 fiscal year, but were later told by HR that that money had been spent elsewhere. The loss of that funding is a big issue for Liard's deputy chief, who has been vocal in his opposition to Charlie's leadership.
When we asked where did they spend it, they said we don't know. So again, this is very, very concerning.
The language department is just one area of concern when it comes to Liard's finances. In January, the First Nation held a financial meeting for membership where it was revealed it had failed to file 103 financial reports and 6 years' worth of audits between 2019 to 2024. As a result, the federal government threatened to turn off Liard's funding unless it filed its delinquent reports and audits. Schilling says he learned of the band's financial situation at the meeting along with membership. He's accusing Chief Charlie of keeping the band in the dark about its own finances. He alleges Charlie refused to share Liard's financial information with other members of council up until the January meeting, and he hasn't shared any information since.
It's a closed door with our own nation's finances. And again, these are things that you shouldn't be, as an elected official for the First Nation, be finding out at a meeting.
For months, most of Charlie's fellow council members have raised concerns about his leadership, accusing him of unilateral decision-making, unethical behavior, and workplace bullying. Schilling feels his people can't move forward with Charlie at the helm.
It makes it really hard when you have one person who's supposed to be on the team that just refuses to work with you.
We reached out to Chief Charlie to get his side of the story. He said in an email to APTN National News that the allegations are nothing new. He had already spoken to APTN about the matter previously, and he had no further comment to add. And he has made statements in the past that he is committed to financial transparency. That includes appointing an accounting firm to help Liard get its finances back on track. The firm said at the January meeting that the federal government enabled the situation with Liard's finances. For instance, it entered into a funding agreement with the First Nation, despite knowing it hadn't submitted audits 2 years prior. But Schilling believes there's no excuse.
Right? Money comes in, money goes out. You have to report on it.
Schilling claims the issues don't stop there. He alleges Chief Charlie also refuses to work with other members of council to hold a General Assembly, with only one being held in the nearly 5 years he's been chief.
Not communicating with your elected officials, it just doesn't work in 2025.
At the end of the day, Schilling simply wants all of council to be able to work together.
My community, my office is not perfect, but we definitely strive to try. And I think if LFN, LELD First Nation, and the leadership that's elected in there could at least start trying, it would be a good start.
I reached out to Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada and Indigenous Services Canada about LELD's finances. A spokesperson said the federal government has no role in how governance disputes are resolved, though they did confirm LELD's financial reporting is not current. They also said they recognize First Nations have varying degrees of administrative capacity and that current reporting requirements can be burdensome for some funding recipients. As for LELD's former language workers, they say they quickly found new employment with the Yukon Native Language Centre. They're continuing their work at an office space provided by the Deludena Council, a sub-council of the LELD First Nation located in the nearby community of Lower Post.
I know for a fact that we are dedicated and it's going to continue going, and that we're open to working and sharing always.
Despite everything that's happened, they say it hasn't changed the trajectory of their work and helping the Kaska language survive. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Photo of the day and weather is up next. Plus, Angel Moore takes us back to the Big Apple. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Time now for our photo of the day. Thanks to Marion Francis for capturing the ice as it continues to melt away from a stream through Cochrane Ranch, located next door to Big Hill Creek, Alberta. Send us your photos to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. On the east, Fredericton 13, Halifax 12. Nujuak -6, the Grand River 7. Saint-Jovite 14, Quebec City 13. Ottawa 16, Peterborough 21. 13 in Timmins, Sudbury 16. 10 in God's Lake, Churchill -3. 15 in Winnipeg, Princess Harbour 12. 12 in Estevan, North Battleford 16. 17 in Meadow Lake, La Ronge, rain and 12. 18 in Grand Prairie, Fort McMurray 15. 14 in Lethbridge, Edmonton 16. Vancouver 18, Penticton 21. Sandspit 10, Smithers 18. 12 in Watson Lake, Dawson 8. 3 in Fort Simpson, Wati 2. Fort McPherson -7, Inuvik -8. Baker Lake -12, Chesterfield -13. And Iqaluit +3, Clyde River -5. As the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues continues this week, discussions focus on financing Indigenous peoples' work moves ahead. But delegates say before that can happen, states must hold up to their commitments to implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. APTN's Angel Moore brings us another report from New York City.
I'm here at the United Nations headquarters, where delegates discuss the lack of consultation with Indigenous peoples and member states not implementing the United Nations declarations on the rights of Indigenous peoples. Indigenous leaders spoke at a side event called Advocating for the Rights of Nature.
Oklahoma.
That is Casey Camp-Hornick, Ponca Nation of Oklahoma.
Is the recognition and implementation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, with a particular emphasis on the right to free, prior, and informed consent.
Nicodemus Cooper is from Botswana and representing the Indigenous Peoples Network from Southern Africa. He says companies extract resources without consent.
We want government to do FPIC with us, free, prior and informed consent before anything can be done. But what we have seen is that governments do this without consultation Indigenous people and only tell them about what they have done.
Resource extraction without consent happens worldwide.
Sou Cari Guajajara, advogada indígena da Amazônia brasileira.
That is Kari Kajajara. She is a coordinator of Indigenous peoples of the Brazilian Amazon. She says Canadian companies are harming Indigenous lands and waters.
Direitos como a consulta livre, prévia e informada.
Rights like consultation and self-determination are being directly impacted by these companies in the Brazilian Amazon.
Lack of consent is also a concern for Indigenous youth in Canada.
Pialasis satsada satkot in the sni do and now the sainta needs elincho.
That is PL Lasis, Slycoatin Youth Delegation.
So we have to hold Canada accountable for the extraction of our minerals and our resources, and due to that, a lot of mismanagement to our territories. And so we're here to make sure that we keep our waters clean and our lands pristine.
But there's hope at the forum, as Camp Hornick offers these words of wisdom.
And you know what? We'll get through this too, just like we have before. It's just that we have to come together harder, stronger, push back more, and warrior up.
The forum continues the rest of the week. Angel Moore, APTN National News, New York.
Thank you, Angel. And that's your evening newscast for this Wednesday, April 23rd. We'll have more stories for you in tomorrow's daytime newscast at 12 p.m. Winnipeg time, including more election coverage. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next day.